Good morning, everybody. Glenn, Red Dog Motorsports. We're back out in the shop this week to work on the yellow TJ known as Big Bird. We're going to work on wiring and get it finished up, get all the headlights, all of that good stuff working. We're going to get the dash installed and get all of the gauges and everything like that in it. We're going to make the rear drive shaft. We're going to fix the transmission issues. We're going to get a couple of brackets made. And if all of the stars align, we're going to get the pedal working in it and make this a driver. So stay tuned and hang out with me while we make all this happen. Okay, so yesterday we talked about the electrical problems. I've got an 80 amp continuous duty solenoid coming that's going to fix all that. We'll have to do some reconfiguration, but I got a pretty good idea of how all that's going to go. So today what I'm working on, went ahead and we built the rear drive shaft. This started out, it was just a front drive shaft from an F-250. You can get them pretty cheap, a couple $100 usually, or sub 200. And they come with a pretty long spline, 1350 U-joints. They're brand new. And they come with a 1350 CV on them. And depending on my use, I'll cut them off and then I use the rest of them. They're a 2 3/4 shaft on them, tubing wise. It's I think 0.095 wall. And this was what I needed for the Unimog setup. It's a 1310 U-joint and the associated parts. And I just put it in the bandsaw, cut it off the length I needed, and boom, welded it up, we're done. Slapped a little paint on it, good to go. I'm getting ready to put it in the rig. We'll bolt it in, and then gonna get started on bolting in the dash. Once I get the dash in there, bolted up, I'm gonna do the layout for the gauges because they're gonna be here this week. They've already shipped. We got 4 gauges coming. We got oil, pressure, water temperature, volts, and transmission temp. With that, I can go ahead and lay all that out. There's no reason not to lay them out. And then we can lay out the switches, all of their locations, and actually start rewiring everything to fix all of the little electrical issues we're having. Otherwise, I need to get back underneath. I need to finish up the transmission cable stuff to get it corrected. And then I need to drop the pan on the transmission. We're going to have to weld in the bung for the transmission temperature sensor, and then the electrical connector is leaking really bad. I don't know what's happened there, but we need to pull it out, inspect it, figure out what's wrong with the O-ring, get it all reinstalled and replaced, whatever needs to be done. From there, really just, I've got a bracket that needs to be made for the air cleaner system so that it's hard mounted. And then we need to wire in the headlights and tail lights, which they're going to get wired up to the aux beam switches. And then this one should be out of here. It'd be test drive time, fluid check, pump things up, you know, that kind of stuff. So let's get to it. Okay, we are back out in the shop, progress being made. Dash is temporarily fitted in here. I've still got some trimming to do. The holes, it's kind of hard to show you guys. I don't think I can really get up in here, but at any rate, there's some bolts up in there. You guys won't be able to see them. At any rate, there's some bolts that come up through here, and they need to go through these holes that I've got drilled right here. And in order to do that, it has to move back some. And so I need to trim this in a little bit more. Normal process of just walking it into place so that I don't overcut, if at all possible, and make the holes too big. I want them tied up against the tubing. Once that's done, we're gonna have to do some layout, and I'm gonna have to do some kind of end cap or something here to make that give a little bit of strength to it and make it look finished. This side's going to be slightly problematic. We're going to have to try to get this pulled out or something so that we can bolt to this location. I think we can make a bracket here and then maybe put a winch line on it. As the winch line pulls tight, we can beat on it with the hammer on the other side and get this to pop back out. We don't need it to be perfect, just needs to be reasonably straight so that we can use that section for the dash. That being said, let me climb up in here. Oh yeah, by the way, shifter's still a mess. I spent, I don't know, 3-4 times of taking it all apart, readjusting everything. Finally get the cable adjusted properly, go to shift through all the gears, and when it gets down into 2 and 1 and the farthest it's hitting underneath, it hits the pan itself. I got it to clear the drive shaft, but now it's hitting the pan and it won't shift like it needs to. So we're gonna have to get in there and straighten out or do something with the shift linkage itself to get the cable to slide left and right so that I can clear the small space I have between the drive shaft and the pan. That being said, here we are. All right, driver's position, looking forward. We've got 4 gauges to go in here. So I can put them down here, kind of like that, so that you can see them through the dash. I can put them up here. The problem with putting up high though is there's stuff back right behind this, and I don't know that I'll have the room, the depth for the gauges, so probably do something like 1, 2, 3, and 4, and like that, so that we can get the, you know, so this would be 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we'll put the shallower ones up top, the deeper one down here, something like that. And then I think we're going to put the aux beam over here. Where's it at? Hold on, sorry. I think we'll put the aux beam right over here. It's weatherproof. It would be easily accessible. And then I can put these 2 switches somewhere probably right in here. So they'll be right here, nice and easy. Power, start, gauges in clear view, aux beam. Everything's within reach of the driver then. And then that leaves this area, anything else he wants, radio, anything like that. So that's what I'm thinking. So let's get on it, make things happen. All right, I'm over here. We're getting things laid out to trim up. So what I'm doing is I'm just using a socket. That gives me a nice shape on the bottom, the right size. Use the square, make sure that they were at the same height. And then we'll just need to make sure to go in a nice straight line here. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the grinder with the cutoff wheel, and I'll just cut a bunch of lines in it and then go, and we'll be able to just go in here and just chip away at it, and that'll get me a nice nice round circle. Then I'll use a half round file like this. The half round file will let me then file it down to get a nice round shape. Out here, I'm just going to be going to the line. I don't need as much out here, so we'll freehand that and see if we can't get all of that ground down and looking good, and then we'll test fit it again. Okay, dash is back in. This is its final, I mean, everything's pretty much in its place, nice and tight. Not too worried about it touching the metal. I could trim that out a little bit more just so it doesn't touch. But the one thing I don't really like, so I use some existing bolts up here in the dash. They're at an angle. When you look at it from here, you can see there's space. If I straighten them up by bending the underneath structure, they're going to move back. May not be the end of the world. I'd have to look and see how much they're going to move, but that would require elongating out the holes. Might leave a small gap. I could probably cover that with a washer. I know I don't like them. The other option is to remove them and then try to drill down, create a location underneath, put in a either, probably not a bolt just because, or a nut, because a nut's going to be hard to get to, but I could do nut certs. So something to look at. This either leave it and not worry about it, or I can make a filler panel, put it in there, and then screw it down with a self tapper or something. I've done that in the past. It doesn't look that bad. It just kind of hides that big gap. So got an alternative for the gauges too. I was looking at it, rather than putting these two up here, which are going to be in conflict underneath here, maybe there is room. If I drop them, I got to bring them down a little bit. I don't know if you guys can see that, but I can. But at any rate, if I come down below that bar, they can sit there. Of course, they're gonna be somewhat hidden. The other option is to do a stack, 2 here and 2 here, and just get all the quads, a quad stack or whatever you want to call it, sitting over there, put them at a diagonal. I kind of like that idea, puts them all at a glance, rather than having to scan across. You just one look over, you can get all 4, and then they just wouldn't have anything here. Not a big deal, you know, doesn't need anything there. And then the aux is going to definitely go here. It makes it nice and easy to get to. One hand, you can drive and shift, you can reach up and do whatever you need to do over here. So, and then definitely power switch and all of that right there. So, and I could do power and start on this side. My buggy's a left-hand button like this, so we could move them over if I got enough cable, which I do not, but cables can be changed. So that's an option too. I'm going to keep playing with it before we make any holes. And yeah, so now it's time to make end caps. All right, guys, good progress has been made. Both of my end caps for the dash are built. I need to weld them. I need to drill the holes, but they're all laid out. A little nervous about welding my end caps on. High risk of me screwing it up. I'm a beginner when it comes to aluminum TIG welding, but I have had some success, so hopefully we can get that welded in without destroying anything. Then we've got the shifter is finally working properly, going through all the gears. That should probably be cut out on this rig. I'm not going to do it without talking to somebody, but in a rock crawler you should be able to go from reverse to first and back to save yourself from rollovers without having to go around. Seconds can count, half seconds can count in that situation. So really should take a grinder or saw and cut that out. I will confirm before I do so. I have solenoid, continuous duty. We get that wired in. That will resolve all of the problems that I was having with the aux beam shutting off. We'll get the fuel pump and the ECM wired directly to it. So the power for the ECM, the power for the, I cannot think this morning. ECM, fuel pump, and the aux beam will all be wired to this. When you turn that main power on, it will power those, and then that'll make it so that you're not kicking the fuel pump and the ECM out every time you go to start it. Drive shafts are built and in. I need to finish tightening the front one. With that, the engine should run just fine. Might have to get in with the computer, do a little bit of tuning or something, adjustment, but we'll see. It shouldn't. It's a stock stock motor, no changes to it, no cam, no nothing like that. Stock computer. It should run great. Do have to get into the transmission still, so that's going to be on our list of things to get into. Need to drop the pan, see what's wrong with the electrical connector. But I did get under the other day and fix the VSS. Was having a connection issue, so I got it connected properly. So hopefully that resolves a lot of the transmission codes I was getting with the computer saying it wasn't reading things. So we'll see. Otherwise, we're about to the point of airing things up and whatnot as soon as we finish the dash. And the gauges will be here today. Oh, and then I've got the vacuum connection for the booster. It's coming. So we're there. We're getting close. Yo, all right, so as you can see in the time lapse, I've been working on wiring. I did do an initial test. I just made sure that the solenoid kicked on when I turned the power on. That being said, I've got things rewired. Before, if you hit the starter switch, it would crank no matter what, and now I've disconnected that. Now it should only crank as a safety item when main power is on. So when I turn main power on, we should get fuel and the noise up front that I don't know, which is actually the throttle control. On mine, I do drive-by wire or drive-by cables, so not used to the drive-by wires making noise. But at any rate, power on. There's fuel pump. I didn't hear the ECM turn on. That's a little worrisome. All right, let's see. Let's do crank, see if we get fire. Oh, it runs. That means the ECM's working. No pedal again. I don't understand why I lose the pedal. See if my connection's loose or something. No pedal. Alright, now let's see if it'll shut off. So main power off, and she dies. That's good. Alright, so the main wiring corrections are done. There is one thing I don't like. I don't like the connections down there, down in that area, but I'm working a little bit with what is here. Personally, that relay here on the right, that circuit breaker, and that connection should all be moved up into this area. Makes it out of the way. You know, passenger can't accidentally put his foot on them. Just all that good stuff. But not my rig, not my build. So I may, you never know, they may look at it later and be like, hey, change all that for me. Right now what I need to do, see if I can get my pedal working again, so we can fire this thing up. And then we need to wire up headlights, which will include the tail lights. Need to look and see if there's a brake light switch underneath here, because it would be nice to wire up brake lights so that they work, which would mean we need to run dedicated power to them. They need to work no matter what. So I need to look into all of that, but that being said, we're doing pretty good. We've got things running again, at least. So let's get to it. Fixed the pedal issue, and I'm not happy about it because I don't know what exactly I did to get it fixed. I know that there for a minute, when I first started it up, it was only running on a couple of cylinders. Went through and started checking boot connections and stuff, and then fired it back up. Pedal was working, everything else was working. So I don't know what connection I hit that fixed it. The other thing is, it's idling really low. Definitely not up where it should be. I'm gonna have to get the computer out and try to figure that one out. But right now I just wanted to check steering, which actually steers nice. It's the old one finger kind of deal. So steering works well. No whining, that's good. I still have to bleed the brakes, but it at least revs up. It should be idling up a little bit better. I don't know if we got dirty injectors, which is possible. It's been sitting for quite some time. So that could be it. That could be in the case. It may blow clean. Might be able to run just some sea foam or something like that and clean them. Might have to remove them and soak them. So we'll see. We'll play with that. But wanted to let it idle up a little bit, get some temps in it. All right, I've got, now that I got things kind of running inside the cab, I moved up to the front, see about getting some headlights figured out. So I exposed pretty much everything that I got. And now I need to figure out what wires go to what. So I stripped the ends of it. I've got me the Milwaukee battery. This is an 18 volt. And then I just put some jumpers into it. They're marked positive and negative. A couple of blade connectors, you can slide them right in. I taken an alligator clip or spring clip. I got the ground to the negative. And then these two wires go to the back of the plug there. And so we just touch one. So that looks like that's high beams. That'd be low beams. Now the other ones, these would be turn signals or running lights, one of the two. I need to play with those. Those are on the back of it, and those are separate from the Jeep wiring. So I got to get me probably a longer jumper to make those. Maybe, yeah, I'll have to get a longer jumper to get that. Maybe not. Maybe I can move the battery over here. Let's see. Getting close. What do we have here? Sorry. Short wires, short wires. All right, that's that one. All right, so that gives you yellow, and that gives you running lights, basically. All right, so on the back side, yellow goes to yellow, and red goes to running lights. So we can wire all of those up. Oh, I didn't check to see I don't know what's running these marker lights. I don't know that I'm going to worry about these markers down here. You guys can't see them, sorry. These ones, I don't know that it's going to be needed. I think I'll just wire these up. I can wire them to come up either white or orange. as soon as you turn the key on, we'll just wire them direct so that when you turn the key on, they come on, and then high beam and low beam will operate off of the aux beam switches. So we'll do one switch will run the aux beam, one switch will then run all right, let me spit this out. One of the aux beam switches will run the headlights, one of the aux beam switches will run the high beams, which I don't know if you can run them both at the same time. I don't know how that works. You're supposed to switch between the two, so we may not do that. We might just run high beams only, and because I don't have a way to switch between the two using the aux beam, because you need to turn one off and turn the other on. So yeah, I don't know what the amperage draw would be trying to run them both. So good question, I guess. All right, so that's where we're at. Now I just need to run the wires back to in there, connecting to the aux beam. The ground is already actually grounded up here. I don't really need to run it up there. So easy peasy. And then I got to do the same for the back. I got to find the wires in the back that run running lights, and then I got to find the ones that run brake lights. And with those two switches or wires figured out on the back, we're good to go. I use the same system. I use the battery. I just find the wires, start playing with them until they come on. Okay, got all of the wires for the back traced out. So we got, I don't know why there's two, but there's backup lights, has an individual wire to each one. Running lights just has a single wire. They're grounded at the back already. This is the light, overhead light up here. That's its ground. That's the positive. And then these two are the brake. Now I know why the brakes have two, and that's because the brake and turn are usually interconnected in the system, and that way you can step on the brake pedal and then the turn signals actually just interrupts that that beam or that signal, and that gives you the blink plus brake. So I understand that. Now this rig's not going to have blinkers, so I don't have to worry about that. I did find the connector. It was just laying over there in my pile of brakes or pile of wiring, but we'll run power from over here down through this switch out and to these two right here, and this way no matter whether or not no matter what happens, you'll always have a brake pedal with lights, and that's really just kind of, again, a safety thing. All of the vehicles basically in the world are wired up that way if they came from a manufacturer. What else we got? Oh, so, and then I got kind of all of my, I know these are kind of hard to read, but we're going to be setting up the aux. We've got 8 switches. So number 1 will be fan, number 2 is going to be headlights. I'm going to leave 3 and 4 empty for now. Number 5 is going to be run, number 6 will be our backup lights, and number 8 will be our overhead. The way these are set up in the controller, 8 is the lowest draw, number 1 and 2, you know, it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 5, 6, 7, 8, and they're in order of draw. So, you know, 30 amp, and then I think they're 15s or whatever, and then they get down here. So I'm kind of setting them up that way. Fan and headlights, they draw a fair amount of power. These will leave for auxiliary lights or something. 5, I'm doing run here. It doesn't take a lot of power, but it's easy to get to it. Backup, we want it easy, you know, kind of all within range. And then we'll leave 7 alone, and we'll put 8 as our overhead light. And those are real easy to wire up. They're all grounded through their system, through the chassis, and then I just plug the power wire into the slot that's on the switch over there. It's all labeled, real easy to do. So can't beat that. We'll get into all that tomorrow. and I got to wire up some connections, like all of the when I turn on when I set the running lights on the front and the back, I also have to wire in the signal that's going to go to the instruments, so that those will turn on with the running lights. If I had a headlight switch, if we were using a headlight switch, all of the headlight, running light, possibly even the overhead light and the running lights would all go to the headlight switch, so that when you pull first notch out, the running lights and instrument lights would turn on. Pull it again, running lights and headlights are on. And then a lot of times if you turn it, the rheostat all the way, that will then turn on your overhead light. But as far as I know, we're just going to use the aux beam, and that means we're not going to have a rheostat, and I have to run different circuits for all the other lights. Kind of sucks if I had a headlight switch. Basically, he would only have backup and fan on the aux beam, and nothing else would be running on it. Interesting. All right, that's where we're at. We'll get on to all of this tomorrow. It's about 6 o'clock, so it's time to go make dinner, get my boy fed, and we'll get out here tomorrow, finish wiring this up. I got a buddy of mine who's gonna swing by tomorrow night because I failed. My welding, I couldn't get it to work, and so I went ahead and backed off because I don't want to ruin the dash. He'll come in here, he'll weld it all up real quick for me, and just the way it is. I need to practice is what I need to do. I need to come out here and just spend some time practicing, and that'll make it so that I can start doing all my own aluminum welding. But I have been remiss. All right, signing out. See you tomorrow. All right, guys, so update. Yesterday I spent a good portion of the day trying to figure out why this won't run correctly, and we went from running well Thursday night, not running well Friday morning. I mean, just sat by itself, no pedal. Then it went to not running at all yesterday, middle of the day, and then I got it to run again, but it's running poorly, still no pedal. And really looks like you know, the only real code we're getting that's related to any of that is just it's got no connection to the TAC module. That could be a wiring issue, but it also could be it's just not seeing any signal back from it. So dead pedal, any of that is what I'm kind of expecting. I've been trying to trace it out and test it with an ohms meter, but it's difficult getting in there. I haven't had much luck. All of my alligator clips are too big. We'll get into that later. I've decided to go ahead and finish up all of the wiring that I was supposed to do yesterday. My buddy Ryan came over and helped me get the dash welded up. I was not doing well. Learned a couple of things from him, but I've got one side of it basically finished up. It's been welded, ground down. It is welded on both sides, so he's got it welded up, so plenty of strength in it. I am going to take and we'll clean all of these scratches and all that stuff up going down it, get a polish on it, and then I need to grind this side down and get it rounded over, which I'm getting ready to do next. And I'm just using a die grinder and some fiber discs, a little bit of zirconium in there just to get the rough stuff off. And then I'm using a file to get things nice and even. And then, so it shouldn't take me too much longer. I'll get that done. And then we'll get into finishing up the wiring. Once I get the wiring done, I'm going to try to get all of the other things finished on the rig, and then come back around to our running problem and whatnot. Mike, is my buddy. He's supposed to be bringing another pedal over. He's got another one at the shop. So we're going to just see if we can't just plug and play one, see if that doesn't fix the issue in a hurry, rather than starting to buy parts. Otherwise, we'll probably end up buying a TAC module if the other pedal doesn't fix it, and see if that doesn't do it, because I really don't have a way to test the TAC module. I verified that it's got 5 volts coming out, that it's got ground, that That's really all it should get. So either the pedal sends a signal in, so the TAC module sends power out to the pedal converts it to the change in volts due to the resistors, sends that back as a reference signal to the TAC, which then sends it up to the throttle body, and it's all married together so that as you move the pedal, throttle body moves. And right now we're not getting that communication. Could be a broken wire, but I don't believe that's the case. Could be wrong. If that is the case, I got to tear the whole harness apart and find it. But the fact that it sat overnight and did it makes me think it's not a wire. So we'll see. All right, let's get to work.
Was a modern-day gypsy when she stumbled into town. She had some tricks up her sleeve, and she took my heart and disappeared. She went up that mountain just like I feared. Come on down from Shanker Mountain, shake for me one more time. Won't you come on down from Shanker Mountain, shake right by my side. Alright, alright.
Alright, it's time for another segment of Look What I Made. So you know, trying to make connections with two wires that need to go to one wire. I like these little blade connectors, spade connectors, whatever you want to call them. If you take them, remove the plastic part, you now have an ability to make a three-way connector. Take your wire, twist up the end, put it into one of these little, you see how it's got two circles there? You put one wire in there. Take your other wire, twist its end up, put it in the other circle, like so. I like these, they're flat on one side, sharp on the other. Try to crimp them both. If you try to crimp just one, you'll cut right through it. Flip it over, get the other side. Don't hurt to add a couple extra. Don't get spunky with it and cut through it. Ask me how I know. All right, once it's tight, take your pair of pliers and you can fold it over. So it makes a nice barrel connection. Then you take your other piece of wire, put it in the other end, just like you normally would. Crimp it down. Nice and tight. Cut it off. Take you a piece of heat shrink. Put it over the connection. Heat gun. And boom, you got a poor man's version of the factory three-way connection. All right, guys. Man, the day has passed. I kind of get lost when I'm wiring. I really generally enjoy it. And so time just flies by. But let me walk you around. I believe I've got everything wired up correctly. We'll find out together. All right, main power on. We got to check engine light now. This volt gauge works. I saw all three of these move. Here, see? Volts off, gauge is down. So that's good. This comes on. I hear the fuel pump. All right, so switch one should be fans. See? I don't know if you can see it, but you can see everything's moving. Switch 2, that should be headlights. Yeah, we got headlights. Switch 5, I don't have anything on 3 or 4. Switch 5 should be running lights. Yeah, so running lights, you can see I've got gauge lights. And then in the back, we have, those are on. And in the front, the orange are on. So, little safety. And then 6 should be backups. Yeah, we got the backup lights. I wasn't provided anything to do a backup switch, but one could be wired in a couple of different ways, I suppose. I could do a switch, the stock one that goes on the shifter mechanism on the transmission, or we could do one on the shifter, but unless I'm told differently, this is how I'm doing it, because that's what I've been provided. And then switch number 8 is the overheads. So everything turned on. That's a good sign. Vehicle's still not running right. It will start, but I'm gonna have to figure out why the pedal and all of that's not doing what it's supposed to do. Dash itself, really pretty pleased with it. The dash came out good. Corners are nice. So even though I didn't weld it, I did learn a lot. So gonna wrap it up for the day. We're probably not gonna get back out tomorrow, not that you guys will notice, but I got a bunch of vehicles to wash. I got to get the buggy clean. I got to get the RV clean. Make sure it's topped off with fuel, propane, all that good stuff. We're getting ready to head to Kentucky to go do some wheeling. So you guys will be seeing that in a video here pretty soon. And should be a good time. But next few things we got coming up, I got to finish wiring the gauges, which really is just putting in the sensors and then running the signal wires. The gauges themselves are actually wired other than the signal wires. We have to finish the air cleaner, which I mentioned this morning. That's a simple bracket. I forgot, I got to deal with the transmission stuff. Pan has to be dropped. I got to clean it. I got to weld the bung in so I can put the temperature sensor in it. And then we need, trying to think, there's something else that I've got to do. Oh, I got to fix the connector on the transmission. Fix the motor, and this one should be out of here. Some fluid checks, that kind of thing, a quick bolt check, which I've done most of the bolt check. Bleed the brakes, all the simple stuff. So it's close. Signing off. All right, I don't know if y'all are ready, but I am. So got the gauges. I finished getting all of the sensors installed. That involved going up. I had to go to the auto parts store and get a adapter set, which basically adapts it from 1/8 inch NPT, which the gauge comes with, to whatever the block is, which in this case there was an M12 and an M16. And then so you install them in the block, and then the 1/8 inch NPT will fit in there. So we got those. I got the transmission pan pulled down and welded the bung into it. And then while I was there, don't know how it happened per se, but the electrical connector had been pushed back down, so I just had to push it back up, got it to click into place. It's kind of hard to see up on top of the transmission. It seems like it's in, everything clicked into place. Hopefully it's not just got some bits of plastic broke or something and it ends up coming back off later on, because that would suck. If that does happen, then more than likely it's going to need a new wiring harness inside that transmission, or at least the new plastic connector, and then we'll have to repin it. That being said, I also, while I was at the auto parts store, bought a new pedal and plugged it in. I have not tried it yet, which is what we're getting ready to do. We'll get a genuine reaction out of me. So let's see. Oh, you know what I should do? Before I do any of that, let me clear the codes. All right, hold on. Don't go nowhere. I'm going to clear the codes on this thing. All right, guys. So I've been doing lots of little things. Zip tying wires up. Welded that bracket on for the air cleaner. Really not a lot to film, but it was important things that need to be done. The tack module came in, so I went and got it. I have since bolted it in. So we've replaced the pedal. I've verified that all of the wires from the tack module up to the throttle body read continuity, so I don't believe we have any broken ones. And now we've replaced the tack module. If this doesn't fix the problem, then we're gonna have to dig deeper, but I have to admit I'd be a bit of a loss. Could be the ECM, but sometimes you just get a bad ECM. So we'll find out here in a second. We're gonna fire it up, see what we get. I did clear the codes too, so here goes nothing. Nothing, I don't get it. All right, it's the next day, morning, and I committed to Cardinal YouTube sin. I worked after hours, and I got things working. It's not working great, but I've got pedal and all that. The problem ended up being that the connector going into the tack module, the sensor signals, the ones that communicated to the ECM, apparently they're touching or were touching inside that connector. And when I was probing it and checking, because I tore apart the whole harness, I did the whole 9 yards, and then went and looked up the pinouts, which I should have done initially, pinned them out, and then I was able to get them on the other end of the spectrum there at the computer, and was able to determine that they were touching. So I was getting a signal through both wires. Like if I touched, I think the colors were blue and white and orange and black, or orange, whatever the case was. If I touched the blue one and I touched the orange one on the other end, I got signal. And if I reversed it, which meant that somewhere they were touching in between, and at any rate, determined that it was in the connector, fixed that, so now it runs. But we've got a couple other codes. We've got a coil code, which number 2 looks like it's not firing correctly. So I'm getting ready to swap coils to another location. If the problem follows, then it's a bad coil. We just got to get a new coil. It'll fix that issue. If it doesn't follow, then we know it's a wiring issue, and we just got to track down the wiring. Also have a O2 sensor code being thrown on both banks. I don't know if it's a ground issue, which I don't think, or a heater wire issue or whatever, but I got to go through and just make sure that coming from the ECM to those, that we have all of the proper wires. On a stock truck, these will have 4 O2 sensors, and even on 6 up to 6 on some of the newer ones, because they typically have a wide band and 2 narrow bands. But this year truck came with 4, one before and one after the cats, and just got to make sure that all of the wires for let's say that they used the front 2, that all of the wires for the front 2 are being used, and we didn't actually pull wires from one of the back ones into the system, which would create some conflicts. Once we can get those done, we're going to test drive it. But right now, I know one bank's running really lean. It's causing some popping and that kind of stuff. So we need to make sure that we get all that ironed out, and we'll be good to go. This thing is almost out of here. All right, that only took a quick minute. I moved it from number 2 to number 4. So now I'm going to erase all the codes. Get it set back up. Now I'm set up to read codes. Power off, power back on, and then we're going to fire it up. See, it just moved. It didn't, we'll read the codes. 0036, 0056, those are my heater codes. Well, that's the only ones coming up. That's good. Oh, there's my 101. That's mass airflow. My A circuit. And 0352, ignition coil beat. So that front ignition coil, there must be a wiring problem. We got to track that down because it stated it B and it didn't move to number 4. So it means there's a wiring problem. It's not firing on that front cylinder. All right, so I've gotten my diagrams figured out on the wiring on this coil. So there's 4 wires going to it: black, brown, pink, and red. The red is our signal. It goes back to the ECM. Brown is the reference for that. Basically, it goes to all of the coils, and then it goes back to the ECM. Pink is power. It connects to 12 volt into the system. It's what powers the coil. The red would be the one that causes the coil to fire, and then pink is the one that powers the coil, and then basically it's like the red is the trigger, releases all that stored power, and then black is ground. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to check the ground. Not too worried about the reference signal, because if I had a reference signal issue, I would think, I mean, I'm going to check it anyways, but I'm not too concerned about it because since it connects to each of the coils, I would have a problem in all of them, I would think, not just one of them. So I expect it to either be the ECM wire, the power wire, could be the ground, but the fact that it's specific to number 2 means it's probably the ECM red wire. We're going to find out. So I've got it set to tone on ohms. Just jam this down in here to my ground, my chassis ground. Whoops. Try to jam it in here. All right, I got it there. We'll check it. All right, it grounds out. So we go over here. If we touch it, should be able to just touch it in here. Sometimes it's hard to get the probe in there. All right, it's got good ground. None of the others are going to ground, so that's a positive. So now I'm going to pin out, I think, between the computer and these, and just make sure that those are all connected, and then we will go from there. But while I'm doing that, it's just more me poking at wires. I'm gonna pause y'all. I'll bring you back when I figure out the problem in the interest of time. Okay, I pinned everything out. It pinned out that it says it's fine, but it, you know, it could be that just there's a little bit of corrosion on the connector at the computer, so maybe that wire, even though it pins out correctly, is not making a good connection inside this ECM, so maybe taking it on and off has fixed it. Everything else pinned out fine. And one of the things I did to get my pins in there, I grabbed one of these little, I don't know what they're called, they're a safety pin of some sort for sewing. Used to get them a lot when you bought clothes. These things would be all through it, but they work great for being able to stick them in the small holes for the connectors, and then just being able to connect some alligator clips to it works out great. I also switched the plug wire to see if just the wire itself might be bad, and obviously that'll cause the problem to move, but right now everything pins out fine, so we're going to start it and find out. Firing now. Now we got to move it to the other one, see if my problem moves. Hopefully they're just connection issues as well. Get this thing running right so we can drive it. All right, so lots and lots of chasing wires, pinning them out, making sure that there was continuity between them all. Looks like all of the bank 1 and 2 sensor 2, which would be the ones after the caps, have been depinned and the wires are removed. That's a good thing. The only real problem I've come up with is, for some reason, the ECM doesn't seem to be grounding out. There's continuity to the wires, but the control is not causing the ground to work. But we do have a problem in that bank 1 is over here on bank 2, and bank 2 is over there on bank 1. So the wiring has to be switched. Kind of a pain because the wiring harness is all connected in there and tape wrapped. So hopefully I can get enough wire over there to get to that side. That one has enough to get over here, but I do have to go through and unclip everything because I zip tied it all. So gonna get on that right after lunch, about 1 o'clock, and see where that leaves us. That doesn't take care of our codes. All right, so lots and lots of chasing wires, pinning them out, making sure that there was continuity between them all. Looks like all of the bank 1 and 2 sensor 2, which would be the ones after the caps, have been depinned and the wires are removed. That's a good thing. The only real problem I've come up with is, for some reason, the ECM doesn't seem to be grounding out. There's continuity to the wires, but the control is not causing the ground to work. But we do have a problem in that bank 1 is over here on bank 2, and bank 2 is over there on bank 1. So the wiring has to be switched. Kind of a pain because the wiring harness is all connected in there and tape wrapped. So hopefully I can get enough wire over there to get to that side. That one has enough to get over here, but I do have to go through and unclip everything because I zip tied it all. So gonna get on that right after lunch, about 1 o'clock, and see where that leaves us. That doesn't take care of our codes. It's not supposed to do that. I removed the offending injectors, and it did no good. I don't know if it's I don't know why. I'm back into the system. Man, I fixed one problem and then just another one crops up. I mean, how many times have we started this thing? We haven't had any problem out of the injectors. Nothing should have changed. It's very frustrating. No O2, the O2 sensors shouldn't cause the injectors to go bad. I didn't mess with any grounds or anything. I just switched them from side to side. And it ran fine when we first fired it up with the O2 sensors swapped side to side. So I don't know. Here we go. All right, let's see what kind of drama we can get into now. So, took the injectors apart, didn't find anything obviously wrong with any of the actual injectors. Put it all back in, still doing the same thing, even though I cleaned them and whatnot. Now I don't have an actual cleaner, I just rinsed them out. Didn't find any trash in them though. And then started checking wiring, was able to verify that when I moved the injector connector, the problem followed the injector connector. I then went looking for where all the power came from and discovered that the two injectors that were giving me trouble, number 7 on this side and number 4 on that side, their pins were next to each other on the ECM. So I'm guessing that at the point that I took the ECM connectors out and put them back in, those two somehow started touching. None of the pins are bent or anything. Everything looks straight. But those older style, they're kind of loose. So must have gotten pushed over and been whatever. So let's hope that it works now. I'm getting ready to start it. I got the computer set up right here so we can hook it up and monitor it. But it should run. Hopefully it runs well. I like what I hear. Let's see if I die. Oh, she's moving. Brakes ain't the greatest, but she stops. I'll take it. Let's go for a ride. right, guys, success has been had. She went around the block. Driveway warranty has expired. She is good to go for the work that I was supposed to do. The only real problem that I see right now is this leaking transmission fluid from around the fill tube where it goes in. I don't know what's gonna have to be done there. Might have to get a more stock style. That's an aftermarket, looked like a cheap Amazon one. I got one of them over there on the shelf and I didn't like the way that it fit, so I ended up getting a stock one. So that may be the necessity, who knows. Otherwise, it ran cool. We stayed at 190. Oil pressure was good, volts were good. Transmission temp didn't look like it was getting hot either. I didn't even think to check that. Would have been good to pay attention, huh? Yeah, barely up to 150. So that being said, we got a couple of codes that we need to get rid of for the second bank, or the second set of sensors. But I'll have to get into the computer and do that. That's not a big deal. Otherwise, it didn't look like it was throwing any other codes. So it is adding a bunch of fuel from when the O2 sensors were wrong. It's now adding all that fuel back in that it was taken back out. So we can clear the long-term fuel trims and whatnot, but as it drives, it'll relearn all that and get all that reset. So with that, we're wrapping up. We'll catch you on the next one. 37 Ford, or 37 Ford, sorry, 37 Ford coming in here into the shop. But before that, we're going wheeling in Kentucky. So stay tuned, lots of fun stuff coming up.